Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast dedicated to helping creative entrepreneurs thrive. I'm Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the business of their dreams. Today, my guest is Kyra Cavanaugh, a Wellbeing consultant, meditation coach, and Qigong instructor who's helped thousands of leaders and teams thrive. She's based in Asheville, North Carolina, and Kyra is an author, speaker, and podcaster who balances her passion for wellness with a love of hiking and live music. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Steve. I'm really excited to be with you and to be having this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a needed conversation in a series of needed conversations. The world, the country, things are always shifting. And I wanted to intentionally have conversations with resources and powerful people like yourself to help creative entrepreneurs kind of continue to thrive, find ways to thrive, deal with the things that are challenging them, whether it's the economy or their business or families or government or whatever else is going on in the world. And so I know you've got some valuable resources that you can help us with. Can you start by just kind of talking about the work that you do and how it impacts people and teams?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started almost 20 years ago helping people work remotely, ironically, long before the pandemic. And what I noticed was there are so many wonderful benefits about working remotely and a really serious challenge that I decided to focus on with my business, which is how to be well when we're spending long periods of time in isolation in our homes or in a co-working or outsourced space. And also trying to figure out what kinds of connections matter and how to be able to sense from each other when someone is doing well and when someone isn't. Because whether or not it's related to virtual work or whether it's just the evolution of us as human beings, we're feeling more disconnected, more isolated, struggling with finding meaning and purpose, mental health challenges, suicides, all of that has skyrocketed. And so it's really important to me to be helping individuals, to be helping people, leaders, to be helping organizations and teams as groups to really be able to solve for this. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You know, when I was inside of my corporate career, I used to think, well, I'm going to get myself well on vacation. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to push myself super, super hard. And I'm going to work really, really hard. And then I'm going to take another vacation. And life just isn't always like that. We've got to be able to find ways to be helping ourselves and helping each other. I get goosebumps moment by moment, meeting by meeting, hour by hour, day by day. And so that's really the work I do, is helping individuals, leaders, and teams find those little strategies, those little moments. Vacations are awesome too, but to be able to check in on each other, to be able to care for each other, and to make sure that we're caring for the dynamic of how we're communicating, how we're allocating workload, how and whether we're delegating. All of those kinds of traditional leadership skills fall into this conversation as well.
To me, and maybe I just have had blinders on, like pre-COVID, I didn't know that this was, even as an agency owner, creative professional, I didn't know that this was a common theme. And you're saying this has been a thing for 20 years. Like, I knew some people worked remote, and I knew that it was like few and far between, and some businesses were built intentionally to be remote. But the mental health strain and the checking in with each other, like that just became such a skyrocketed theme during COVID that I don't know that it was even a blip on my radar prior to that.
There was I totally appreciate that. I think, for some of us, maybe it kind of crept up over time. It's the 20-year anniversary of, I forget the Harvard professor's name. We could probably put it in the show notes. He wrote a book called Bowling Alone. It was 20 years ago now, where and he just published another book on this topic. He was predicting everything that's happening to us, the sense of disconnection, the sense of polarization, the sense of isolation. And so, yeah, like researchers were paying attention to it. But so many of us were just heads down, living our life, doing our thing. And so I think it has kind of caught a lot of us by surprise. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so a lot of the work you're doing is how do we maintain kind of less hills and valleys between those summer vacation and spring break or whatever it might be, and find more day-to-day check-ins with self, with peers, with family to try and even out those hills and valleys? I mean, is that a super simplistic way to look at it?
I don't think simple to me is beautiful. So yes, I love the simplification of it. Yeah, I think it's a shift in thinking away from this idea that there are times in our lives where we can relax and be well. And there are times in our lives where we have to push heads down and perform. And I see that that sort of polarity as being a limiting mindset and a limiting belief. Whether it's us as leaders thinking that the people on our team should be pushing all the time, unless they're on vacation, and still you should be available, right? That kind of old school mindset. Or, yeah, you're shaking your head.
Yeah.
Or if it's that, if we sort of look at workload and delegation and availability, and if I get really transparent, then we're going to turn into a bunch of, softies who can't get anything done, right? This idea of this sort of black and white thinking around resilience and around well-being is just so antiquated. And we all can feel that and sense that and know that. But okay, Kyra, what do we do about it, right? And that's the thing. Some of us may have a practice, or we may have had a practice, but it's not really feeling right for us anymore. Maybe we feel guilty. Maybe I feel like I should be working out, or I should have a meditation practice, or I should go back to church or temple. But all this should isn't getting us anywhere either. So yeah, it's really about diving in and just looking at what's getting in your way of caring for yourself. As a leader, what's getting in the way of thinking that it's okay that your team be caring for yourself, and that you as a leader be caring for yourself. And then really, what are some simple things we can do when we're really time pressed, or we're really down, or disconnected, or feeling lost, or super crazed because we're under a deadline? There are still things we can be doing to support ourselves.
So we're not going to solve for like dismantling and rewiring the U.S. culture on like toxic workplace, overworkedness, and feeling guilty about taking vacation time. Whereas in Europe, they're like, yeah, I'm off for the whole summer and I'm not going to ever check your email, so don't send it, kind of thing. There's those memes of like, the autoresponder when I'm on vacation in the U.S. is like, I'm in the ocean on my laptop, like, I'll get back to you, or let me get that done for you. We're not going to solve for that as a whole today, but certainly we can give some kind of tidbits on how leaders can encourage team members to take the time and what to do with the time, and maybe some indicators on what teammates and leaders can see in each other, on indicators of like, hey, maybe you need some time. How do we encourage that sort of kind of healthiness in the creative workspace, but in all workspaces?
It really starts with you, with me, with I. So it starts with just ask yourself, what are my beliefs, my thought systems, my habits, and the reinforced behaviors that have formed my attitudes, the words I speak, the choices I make around well-being. We have to start there. Now, you might say, Kyra, that's like a big existential sit on top of a mountain, and I don't have time to do that kind of response. And it's not. It's when you wake up in the morning and you choose not to go for a walk without your headphones on for 5 minutes, even though you said, I've tried that before and it feels really good, I'm not doing it today. Stop and just ask yourself why. Not to make yourself feel guilty, not to overanalyze, but just ask why. The why for me is I don't have time for this. I have to get to work. Okay, well, just stop and really ask yourself, do I have a meeting I have to be at where I can't take the 5 minutes? Maybe. Do I have a 9 a.m. deadline? Maybe, but maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is it that you have learned is wrong about taking care of yourself? So it starts there. So now I'm a leader who doesn't value that. I'm a workaholic. I'm a perfectionist. I have a particular way of working that has always delivered amazing results. I'm not really interested in evaluating that or changing that. So I'm bringing that to my agency. I'm bringing that to my team. I'm bringing that to my clients, whether I realize it or not. So now, non-verbally, I'm conveying to you, we have mirror neurons in our brains. Neuroscientists have proven in less than a second, we can read each other. And this has great evolutionary benefit. Whether you're saying it or not, the people around you are sensing your value system. They know, without you even saying it, that you did not take 5 minutes to yourself this morning. You're showing up that way, whether you realize it or not. So then they're going to follow you, do what I say, not what I do. We do what you do, not what you say. So I'm going to follow you. And very quickly, we form a team dynamic that says we don't take time to ourselves. So it's that simple, that quick, and that easy. The moment you interrupt that habit, that thought, that belief, that behavior, now you're giving yourself a pause for a second to ask, well, I actually don't have a meeting. I don't have a deadline. Maybe I'll go ahead and do it. See what happens. Then we have to take a second to register, what did it feel like for me to take that 5-minute walk around the block with no headphones in? I kind of noticed there are leaves on the trees, in springtime, or I noticed there weren't any birds out this morning. How did that feel? That felt pretty good. Okay. Because the other thing that happens is we'll have this really amazing lunch, but we're watching a YouTube video while we're doing it, and our brains don't even recognize that we ate. That's actually a thing. So we've got to take a moment and recognize, how did it feel when I did care for myself? Because that starts the virtuous cycle of self-care.
Yeah. I love that you point out how it's such a, do what I say, not what I do culture, and the expectations of what will they think if I take this 5-minute walk for myself, or midday, I'm just going to go for a walk around the building, or like, what will they think? And that whole, toxicity. I'm a big fan of just get up that much earlier and carve out the time. We never find the time, but if we make the time to meditate, run, go to the gym, walk in the park, whatever that thing is, that to me, it's intentionalized, it's prioritized, and you can't take it away from me, as opposed to, I'll see if I can fit it into my schedule.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And that can also feel super intimidating. Like, okay, I'm going to get up early tomorrow, but what if I get up and I can't get out of bed? Like, now the judgment cycle is going to form. And then it becomes more and more difficult to do it the next day and the next day, because now I'm beating myself up.
Yeah.
So there's an awesome body of work that shows that change starts with the most minute thing you could do. So you might get up early so you could fit in a half-hour workout or a 5-mile run. Well, I could start by saying, I'm going to do 1 jumping jack every morning before I get in the shower. Yeah. And the idea is you reinforce the one until it becomes so silly that you don't even think about doing it. And then you might decide to do 2. Well, before you know it, you've built yourself a movement routine. And it's a way to kind of fake out the resistance in the brain. But I think it's awesome that you have the discipline and you have recognized the value of carving out that time. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's not a 4 a.m. thing that starts with a cold plunge. That's not my lifestyle. I don't understand that.
Phew, thank God.
For me, so I have a meditation practice that I've had for many years, and I started keeping track of it 1,704 days ago. And so to me, it's not competitive, but I like the consistency of it. And I wake up earlier than I need to prepare my day and start my day and get to my first call, or, be with my fiance or whatever, because that time carved out is sacred to me. And I know if I don't start the day with that part of the day, I walk a little bit more crooked, or I'm a little edgier. And so I haven't had that in a long time. But so to me, it's got to be intentional. And I was taught, carve out the time and carve out the space. And, that, like you said, it starts with the one. So that start a habit, it starts with one day or one activity or one foot in front of the other or whatever. So you talk about how the connection to how I'm feeling and how I might be productive in the workplace, or how my leadership, or I might be as a leader, is impacted by all of this. Can you dig into that a little bit in leadership styles?
Yeah. So from the perspective of how it impacts well-being for yourself, give me a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, so if my team, or the team that I manage, or the team that I report to, if well-being is off, body, mind, spirit, all of the above, like how is that going to impact productivity of the overall team, delivery to clients, and what are just some signs that leadership can look for?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I go back to this idea that many, 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 many of us have been trained to think that well-being is this soft thing that gets in the way. It's an obstacle to all the things that we're trying to manage for as leaders. And in fact, scientists have been studying for over 20 years, again, this 20-year
Mm-hmm.
mark, that it's actually the opposite. So well-being improves client and customer service. Well-being improves innovation and creativity. Well-being improves interpersonal relationships, which we all know we rely on to
Yeah.
be able to do our best work. It improves our focus. It improves our ability to sleep, which then improves our productivity.
Yep.
So pretty much every measure, everything that we rely on as humans to be able to do our job is improved when, like you were just explaining, Steve, when I feel better. And so the way that I think about feeling better, and a way that leaders can think about checking in with themselves and checking in with their teams, is really threefold. It's head, heart, and body. And that sounds very cliche, but I'm going to go deeper. What are the quality and quantity of your thoughts today? You can ask yourself that as a leader. You can go around at the beginning of a meeting and you can just check in. Let's do red, yellow, green. How are our thoughts today? And you can even get more specific. How are we feeling about this project right now? Or our progress on the project, or the one big obstacle that's really bothering you. You go around and you're just real quick. Everybody's just checking in, and you have a rule. It's one sentence or it's 30 seconds or whatever. So you can get on with your meeting, but you're just doing a quick mental check-in. You could do it as, how are you doing personally? How are things going personally? How are you feeling about your career? How are you feeling about your personal life? You can ask any question you want, and what you're trying to get at is the quality of the quantity of thoughts. Are there a lot of thoughts? Are there a lot of worries, a lot of concerns, a lot of judgments going on in our heads? That's going to get in the way of creativity.
Yeah.
We all know, right? Is there a whole bunch of safety and security needs that are going on in our body? Our bodies are in stress response mode, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We are not going to be creative, and we're not going to be terribly productive. So what are you seeing, which is harder to do when you're managing a remote team, but you can still see it. I'm making eye contact with you right now. If I were kind of fumbling around or looking around or sort of slumping down, you can sense that.
Yeah.
So what's going on physically with your team, and what's going on physically with you? If you're coming out of a sickness or you've lost a loved one, you're going to take a beating physically for weeks and weeks and weeks, long past when people think you should still be feeling it, right, in your body, and you still are. Is anyone checking in on you 3 weeks after the funeral, 6 weeks after your leave? Or are they just glad you're back and you better be working hard, right? And then what's going on emotionally? And in all of the topics that I work on with individuals and with teams, especially in the context of work, emotions is the difficult one. It's the one people are most interested in. And it's also the one that people feel doesn't really have applicability in the workplace. And yet, we're the makeup of those three things. So if we are unwilling or unable to even build a life an emotional life and understanding of the emotional burden that we're carrying around, we're certainly not going to be able to connect with each other on that. And yet that is the heart, no pun intended, of human connection. So what kind of space can we hold for our emotional lives, for ourselves and for each other? That to me, I get goosebumps, because that's where the old is. And it's the place that can be most difficult for us to kind of enter into.
I think it's a touchy area that people are afraid to even tiptoe into in the workplace. Am I crossing a boundary? Am I, we say, let's not treat the business like a family because I want to be able to fire you or whatever. But I also want to be able to connect with you on a level so that we can be human together and have feelings together. And are you okay? And so, I know that there is trepidation around that from leadership to, do that with their team members. Are there some, I guess, best practices or key ways that people can do it without overstepping, without, I don't know, interfering, or getting in trouble, or whatever the concerns are?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you asking that question. There's one word that comes to mind right away, which is boundaries, which is another hot topic in organizations. What are your personal boundaries? What are your professional boundaries? Do you even recognize that it's okay to have them and it's okay for other people to have them? Because when we're going to start talking about emotion, if I tend to be boundaryless as a leader, as a team member, if I think anything goes, I'm going to go to places that I don't even know are emotionally sensitive. That's going to turn a whole bunch of people off. That's not having boundaries and respecting boundaries. If I'm a very boundary control oriented person, I'm going to presume your boundaries are so high, you don't want me to talk about this. So again, we're going to approach it through our own lens. It's how we love, it's how we lead, it's how we connect with each other. It's all through our own lens. So respect and understand that you are who you are, but not everybody's you. So that's when we get into the cool, curious nature of human connection. So if I recognize that you have boundaries, Steve, and you recognize that I have boundaries, now the fun begins. I'm not going to cross your boundaries, but I can say, and in fact, I did ask you before we got started today, I said, how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
How are you showing up today? And you could be honest with me. Did I cross a boundary for you when I asked that question?
No, but I'm very open. I could have answered that question for an hour with you. You know what I mean? But in a workplace, I feel like, and I've had people that have reported to me that, I've checked in with, and they're like, I don't want to talk about that with you. You're my creative director, not my therapist, or, those kinds of responses.
Yep.
And so, I want to encourage people to check in with their teammates, but establish boundaries and in both directions, to know that, hey, I'm open if you need something, but if you're not comfortable with that, I understand. There's a boundary here for you, right? Is what you're getting at.
And I so appreciate that. And a lot of it has to do with trust. So you're absolutely right. If I haven't spent time with you, if I'm not investing in you as a person, then why on earth would that person want to share their, what feels really personal with you? Of course they don't. And it's not personal necessarily. It might be, but it may also be that you haven't kind of earned that sense of permission or right to go there. So how about we start with easy stuff? How about we actually just start by seeing each other? Hey, how are you today? Or how was your weekend? And stop. Hey, how you doing? And then what are we going to do? We're going to delegate a task. No. How you doing? Let's just stop. I saw some really awesome music this weekend. Oh, tell me about it. It doesn't have to take a ton of time. If we define human connection as part of work, part of our to-do list for the day, then we're going to naturally invest those few moments day by day, week by week, so that when someone is clearly different, they're showing up different than they did yesterday, or the day before, or now it's week 2 or 3 or 4, and they're seeming really detached, and that's not regular for them. Now, perhaps you've earned the right. Now, perhaps there's enough trust there. But see, if we're just cruising about our day, just seeing each other as robots who are, productivity robots to get work done, then you're absolutely right. We may be crossing boundaries left, right, and sideways, and coming across as really disingenuous that now I'm going to take the time because you're not showing up in a way that's productive. Now that's not even feeling authentic and sincere. And so you're going to absolutely get that kind of shutdown response.
Yeah, you need me to get something done to make a client happy, so you're going to check in with me because you see that I'm off a little bit, but do that on a regular, random Tuesday or whatever. Yeah. I also think most people, my perspective, most people just throw the word fine. Like, how are you? Fine. How's everything? Fine. I'm probably a trap. Don't ask me that. I'll open up to a complete stranger. Do you know what I mean? And so I don't think most people are of the nature of, it was a really hard weekend, so-and-so, we had to put Fluffy down, or like whatever the thing is, or I saw a movie that was triggering, and, so I have to book a session with my therapist. I don't think most people will open up like that to non-family members, or they're not their bestie, or, you know what I mean? And so, maybe we have to figure out how to make that more of the norm of being more honest and open in our secondary circles or something like that.
Yeah, until we're going to let people see our own humanity, they're not going to let us see theirs.
Yeah.
And why are we not showing each other our humanity? For a whole bunch of reasons.
Episode 2.
For a whole bunch of reasons. And so we don't even have to delve into the reasons. To your point, we don't have to delve into the reasons. We can just acknowledge they're there. Wow, life is kind of hard right now, huh? It's not even a question. It's just me saying it, right? And someone can choose to agree or not agree. They can choose to turn around and walk away. It's all right. But what if I'm really, really, really lonely? Yeah. What if I feel like there is literally not a person, and the percentages are shocking, the number of people who do not believe that there is a person in this world that cares whether they walk this earth? And your moment of connection with them might make all the difference. It may be the only human interaction that they have all day. So are we really going to continue to be about productivity and about that drive and about getting stuff done? I understand it served us all and our profits very well for a long time, but at what cost? Yeah. And I don't ask it to be, some softie again. I ask it because I honestly believe that blind spot is going to cost business, cost leaders, cost profits. The longer this continues, there's a direct connection. We're all seeing people coming into their voices as employees, as laborers, as workers, saying enough is enough. So as leaders, it doesn't matter what your motivation is. You don't actually have to care about people. And there are plenty of leaders out there that actually don't care. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, I don't care. And I'll say, I get that. I get that you don't care. Guess what? Then do it for some dark reason that you don't share with anyone, that it's a profit-based reason or world domination reason. I don't care. I don't care what your motivation is to see me as a human being, but can you take that moment? Can you take that moment?
And please take that moment. Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. Our world is counting on it,
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful stuff. I'm really grateful for your insights there. And I think it's super powerful and very helpful. A couple of random quick rapid fires just to kind of, lighten it if we need it lightened, whatever. But what's something that you are binging these days, a hobby, a show, a book, a podcast that you want to share about?
Thanks for asking. So I'm in Asheville. So we got hit by the hurricane, and jigsaw puzzles have been my beautiful distraction and therapeutic activity for months now, along with volunteering and all the other good things that we as a community are doing to help each other and come together. But I found out a pro tip about jigsaw puzzles, which is that goodwill or whatever your local consignment charity shop is, sells really good puzzles with all the pieces in them for $1, $2, $3. So I got a whole stack of them at home that I'm working through.
I was going to ask if you have a puzzle exchange started in your community yet.
Yeah, we don't. I should start one. We have one in our building, and I think it's just using a third party to be doing the exchange right now.
Yeah. What is a tool that you recently integrated into your life that you look back and say, how did I get by without this? Whatever, physical, digital, personal, or professional.
Yeah. So I bought a set of electric. I guess you'd call them electric gongs. Now, I thought at the time they were very overpriced, but what I love about them is you hit the button on each of them, you set them down, and they time you. It's either 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and I use them every morning to just sit. It doesn't even matter what you're doing while you're sitting, but I just listen to that music. And so now my body knows that my body hears that sound. And it's like, I get my 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it is, of just sitting. And so like I used to think that a sitting practice had to have some like tradition or some mantra or some whatever attached to it. And I've just found the joy of a couple minutes of sitting is incredible.
I love that. And then finally, what is just an invaluable piece of advice that you can share with listeners?
An invaluable piece of advice. Just recognize that investing in yourself, giving yourself whatever it is that you wish someone would tell you or give you or say to you, just recognize that you deserve that and that you don't need any justification to go ahead and be kind to yourself, to be understanding, to be compassionate. I spent a lot of years of my life waiting for people to see me or to thank me or to say something nice to me. My whole life changed a number of years ago when I realized I can just give that to myself and let that expectation go. So I wish that for everyone who's listening.
Kyra, thank you so much for that and for all of your wisdom that you shared with us today. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Steve. It was a pleasure being here.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.